There's only one type of person that's worse than the Phantom Troupe: a lawyer. Welcome to Suck War Central, where we talk all things Succession War. I'm your host, CJ, and today we'll be discussing the Nen defenses surrounding the hideout of the Hale Lee Mafia family and how exactly the Phantom Troupe might be able to overcome them. As you'd expect from a lawyer of the Hunter x Hunterverse, Yokotani of the Hale Lee family has managed to create what seems like an unbeatably powerful Nen ability. It's designed to bar all intruders from the Hale Lee hideout so as not to disturb their little XP grinding sessions. But with Nobunaga declaring war against the Hale Lee on behalf of the Phantom Troupe, which is a bit unfair given these guys are all beginners, but no one's ever accused the Phantom Troupe of being upstanding and honorable citizens, it's a problem they're going to have to solve. So let's see how invincible this unkillable summons ability really is, and if we can figure out a way for the spiders to catch those dastardly little Hale Lee flies. Before we get into how to get past the Hale Lee hideout's defenses, it's important to lay out what we're working with here. Yokotani's ability, A Battle of Wits, LSDF, activates specifically when Yokotani introduces himself to unlawful intruders. It only functions while Morena Prudo is in the hideout, and it conjures utterly invincible soldiers who escort the target off the premises. These soldiers were able to speed blitz and overwhelm Nobunaga, and the fight is essentially over the second Yokotani activates it. In other words, for the spiders to succeed, they have to incapacitate or kill Yokotani before he manages to activate LSDF. Of course, that's going to be incredibly difficult due to the ability of this fellow, Terabellum. His ability allows him to transfer damage between people and objects with his hands, nullifying attacks. This lets him protect Yokotani and himself with extreme ease. So, how exactly are the spiders meant to get past these defenses and start the unsportsmanlike royal rumble of their dreams? From the description of Yokotani's ability alone, the answer might have come to you. Just kill the guy before he can introduce himself. I mean, it sounds obvious, right? It's significantly harder for someone to be a problem for you when they're dead, although not impossible, I suppose. Unfortunately, Nobunaga already tried that, and Terabellum made it impossible. And let's be clear, this was Nobunaga catching Yokotani by surprise while these guys were essentially just screwing around. Look at these morons, they don't even care that one of the most powerful human beings on this entire boat just walked in with the intent to kill them because they have a corrupt lawyer on their side. Smug bastards. Still, this was undeniably a close call, and given just how close, they're almost certainly not going to be so relaxed next time. After such an encounter, they're going to be absolutely locked in, guarding Yokotani with everything they've got. So, if going in swords a-throwing is unlikely to kill Yokotani in time, what other options are there? Not too many, because so far the other spiders don't really care about this. But if there's one person who's likely to get into a feud like this because somebody played a silly little murder joke on his buddies, it's Franklin. That guy loves a good fight and does not tolerate disrespect, and he might just be the perfect weapon to get rid of Yokotani and counteract Terabellum's ability. You see, according to this panel, Terabellum's ability can only work on objects, meaning Franklin's Nen ability can bypass it. Or can it? Some translations simply use means of attack. I was curious, so I consulted the original. Now, my Japanese is completely pathetic, but I believe I identified the word Togashi used as bushitsu, which literally means material. I'm gonna be honest, I do not know if bushitsu as used in Hunter x Hunter can refer to aura or just to physical objects, and I am not Japanese literate enough, nor do I have the time to stumble through the Japanese manga until I figure it out, so for now we'll leave it at a solid maybe. The point is, if Franklin's aura bullets do not count as a material for the purposes of Terabellum's ability, then the problem is solved. All Franklin has to do is charge in, fingers blazing, and win. However, since all we have is a fat maybe, let's talk about what the troupe can do if finger blasting the Mafia doesn't work this time. Now, quick aside, I would be remiss not to mention that another way to exploit the conditions of Yokotani's ability is to somehow get Morena out of the hideout. Since his ability doesn't work if Mommy Morena isn't home, luring her out and then attacking while she's gone solves the problem nicely. However, I'm not going to spend much time discussing this idea because the troupe don't actually know or have a way to learn this. Besides, Morena's butt is looking glued to that gamer chair as can be, and you do not interrupt a woman with a personality disorder's gaming session if you know it's good for you. So let's just assume that she's not leaving. I know I said the other spiders don't really care about this feud at the moment, but they're gonna have to get involved at some point, and they have exactly what we need. Specifically, I'm talking about disguise abilities. Let's start with Benolanov. We don't exactly know what his Battle Cantabile Metamorphosin can do, but if he were to, say, transform into an object, be taken inside the Hail-Lee hideout, and then untransform, he could launch a far better surprise attack on Yokotani than anyone else could manage. The problem is, until we know what it can actually do, we can't really say how it might work. There's also Chrollo's Convert Hands. This could allow him to take on the disguise of any of the Hail-Lee members in order to sneak in and land a sneak attack on Yokotani with ease. There's a potential problem with this strategy too, however. Aside from the fact that Chrollo is currently tunnel vision laser focused on killing Hisoka, he has to touch a Hail-Lee member in order to activate Convert Hands. The reason this is a problem is that even though the Hail-Lee do leave their crusty gamer den to commit murder from time to time, someone in their hideout almost certainly has a way to keep tabs on them while they're out and about. If Chrollo showed up in disguise after tapping a Hail-Lee member on the shoulder, they'd probably kick him right out. When it comes to disguise, the best option we're left with is Illumi. As far as we know, he can disguise himself without ever coming into physical contact with the person he wants to look like. Illumi could discreetly observe his target from a distance before disguising himself, allowing him to enter the hideout. One problem with this, though. Out of all the spiders, Illumi seems like he could absolutely not give less of a crap about the Hail-Lee. He is here for one reason and one reason only: to kill Hisoka. He's not about to let Finks, Nobunaga, and Phaeton drag him into this silly little mafia side quest. But if by some miracle they get the guy on board, I could see Illumi walking right into the hideout and promptly assassinating Yokotani. Since Illumi's just as much of a long shot as Franklin, let's try and find a way that the Trouble Trio specifically could pull this off. So something of note is that Yokotani's ability specifically activates against unlawful intruders. If there were a way to enter quote-unquote lawfully, he should be unable to activate his soldiers until a crime has been committed, effectively allowing the spiders to make the first move. I consider gaining lawful entry nearly assured victory for the Phantom Troupe now that Terrabellum has lost the element of surprise. Lawful entry could be as simple as finding a different entrance, and Nobunaga speculates on the existence of alternate entrances. Another possibility is that entering the hideout not through teleportation, but through the actual door on Tier 2 where the hideout is located is what counts as lawful entry. It sort of makes sense. Teleporting bends the laws of nature, while entering through the actual door is just how things are supposed to work. It might not be a play on words like that per se, but it could still be the solution. One last idea for how the spiders could enter the hideout to wipe out the Hail-Lee family is that, they don't. After all, the goal isn't get into the Hail-Lee Mafia laundry room, it's slaughter those pathetic fools who thought they could manipulate us and make a joke out of us. It may seem obvious when I say it, but there are ways to do that without ever entering the hideout at all. One would be to compromise its structural integrity. Now, Nobunaga's tried this by slashing into the hideout's wall, and it just sort of regenerated, but Nobunaga is more primed for precise cutting than wholesale destruction. Someone like Finks might be able to deal lasting damage to the hideout, but honestly, it looked like a pretty big complex, and it might be possible to just reconjure it if something happens. In my opinion, a better approach would be to go so far as to render the hideout uninhabitable with something like Phaeton's Pain Packer. Now, I'm just spitballing here, but what if Nobunaga and Finks were to take Phaeton, smack him around a little bit, and then they just shoved him into the hideout and set off the bomb? He could, at the very least, force the entire Hail-Lee family out into the open. At most, he might just blow them all up. And then there's Benolanov. The music he makes with his body can reverberate over tremendous distances. If he makes it to just outside the hideout on Tier 2, he wouldn't even have to step into it to start blasting tunes and make the Hail-Lee's ears bleed. And once he conjures Jupiter, he can squash the Hail-Lee like the bugs they are, so long as they remain within earshot of his music. Personally, at the end of the day, this is what I think is most likely: the path of absolute destruction. You see, the Phantom Troupe don't really half-ass anything, except the time they, half-killed Hisoka, but other than that, the Hail-Lee and their quirky array of abilities are cute and all, but they are nothing compared to the unparalleled destructive power contained within the Phantom Troupe's devastating arsenal of top-tier Hatsus. This is not the kind of firepower you can just outwit and work around with conditions, at least not at the amateur level that the Hail-Lee fight at. every single one of them is a Nen novice with the exception of Morena, while the Phantom Troupe is a collection of the Hunter x Hunter world's premier Nen users. In the conflict between the Heili and the Spiders, the Heili are absolutely, unequivocally destined to be wiped out. Of course, in the grand scheme of things, it's hard to say how much that actually matters. Once contagion begins to proliferate, it won't matter if there are none of the original users left. The countdown to the destruction of the black whale will have already passed the point of no return. With that being said, I hope you enjoyed this little series of musings about Nen and spiders and smug little mafia boys, and I do hope you'll join me for my next Hunter x Hunter discussion. If you had fun, let me know in the comments what kind of videos you'd like to see in the future, and I hope you have a wonderful day.